Hello there. Changing up the intro a little bit because we have a new podcast. Welcome in to the House of Halas Podcast, where we're here to spout the legacy of George Halas and talk about nothing else. This is the former Corked Up, former Bear With Us podcast. I'm Jack Savio, joined today by Frank Naris. And we're here to talk about Bears football because that's all this podcast will be. It'll really be the only thing that will remain. We got a new logo, which you may be able to see on your wherever you're listening, whether it's YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever. We're there for you. We got a new logo. We got Nas on there now. He requested not to be the main feature of the logo, but we still put him in the middle because we want to be part of it.
We need a nice white bread sandwich.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of meat do you think Nas would be?
Pastrami?
Okay. Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%. Yeah. I just Googled it to make sure I wasn't going crazy.
I was gonna say, did you just Google a picture of?
I did.
Off to a great start on the House of Halas podcast. The first episode. We are going to be calling it the first episode. We actually have a brand new YouTube channel. So bear with us. You can just migrate over there. Please like and subscribe to our new House of Halas channel. We're definitely going to be trying to grow that. Of course, we're also on TikTok. Same thing. House of Halas. I don't even believe that changed the actual. No, it's not a new TikTok.
No, only the YouTube changed. So audio, yeah. TikTok, if you're with us on Instagram, all of that will stay the same. That was easier to change. YouTube, just their algorithm is very finicky. So we just decided with a second name change to.
And that's what we do. We do it for the algo. All right, we do it. That's all we care about, baby. Those likes, those clicks, those views. We're on Twitter, at Jack_Savio5. At Frank Mags, I believe, is still your handle.
Frank Mags _, and then we have our official handle at House of Halas Pod, I believe.
Yeah, House of Halas Pod, and we're very easy to follow. Frank was tweeting out during the game. I was tweeting as well. Frank has been replying to a bunch of accounts that were talking Bears. So if you want to engage with the conversation, the podcast as well offline, feel free to go follow that Twitter page. We're doing things a little bit different here, but the podcast will still remain the same. Frank and I are still the same Bears fans who have been yelling about this stupid team for the last 6 years now. Been doing this 6 years or so.
Yeah,
it's been a while. It's been a while, to say the least. It feels like nothing's changed at all because they still find ways to lose in just the most ridiculous ways possible. Frank, let's talk a little bit about this Bears-Vikings game. The Bears fall to 4-7 for the fifth straight loss. It was 27-30 in overtime. Look, almost the perfect loss. We're going to talk about a lot of things here today. If you were upset that they lost, I'm sorry. I think you're kind of missing the point of kind of where we're at right now in the season, and we're here for you. We'll help you understand exactly how to maybe enjoy your Thanksgiving against the Lions and the rest of the season after that. Today on this episode, we're going to run through offense. Of course, we want to talk about Thomas Brown and his adjustments that he has made since becoming the new offensive coordinator. Of course, we'll talk about Caleb Williams and his performance. And then we want to talk a little bit about Keenan Allen. He's been a kind of like a lightning rod for conversations throughout Bears fandom. So we definitely want to get into that. And then on the other side of the ball, we need to talk about our head coach and defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus. I want to talk a little bit about at the top of the house, where we think Ryan Poles stands in this, where Matt Eberflus stands in this. Just is this team adopting maybe too conservative approach, too much of that nature? And then ultimately we want to end this podcast with a big question that I think I kind of just alluded to it. And Bears fans are kind of wondering right now, did the Bears just waste year one of Caleb Williams? And so we'll definitely get into that today on this podcast. So let's start with Thomas Brown, the new offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, was promoted after Shane Waldron was let go. 19 points last week against the Packers. Probably should have been 22, but who's counting? And then 27 points this week. Again, probably should have been 30, but special teams kind of failed them once more. Frank, 19 points in his first outing, 27 points in his following outing. Where are you at with Thomas Brown right now?
I'm very happy with Thomas Brown. I think if people were to go back to older episodes with the old name, and we talked about, we didn't know obviously much about Shane Waldron. We're not Seahawks fans. We watched from afar. From what we saw, he looked competent. All we wanted was competent play calling. And what that looked like to us was, one, sticking to the run. You have a rookie quarterback. He did not do that. While you stick to the run, have plays that branch off of that, some play action stuff, some RPOs, a lot of things like that. Really, ultimately, it was like take advantage of the talent that you have on this team because it's so abundant that you're, lessening the rookie quarterback's workload. None of that happened with him. Not only Jack, did none of that happen with Waldron. It was like compounding because there was this weird, route tree combinations that he would have in what looked like to the naked eye. And obviously people who know more about football than us on a technical level, just like so many option routes and different things where the offense was just totally discombobulated. Now you flash forward to these last 2 weeks with Thomas Brown since he's taken over. It is the complete opposite of that. And that's why I'm feeling great about it because it's not like, they made major changes to the offensive line. They obviously didn't change the quarterback. They changed the usage of certain guys, and I DJ Moore being one of them, but that's just the OC being common sense. So I'm saying all that to say, you look at some of the plays that have naturally come over from Waldron's playbook, thinking of like bubble screens, thinking of even like running back screens, thinking of, the middle of the field stuff with Cole Kmet. All of it looks crisp. All of it looks like they know what they're supposed to do. And Caleb, because the one thing that we have said about Caleb, even when things were discombobulated, is even if it looked ugly on game day, when you watch the All-22, you're like, man, this is aging well for him because it's not like he's confused by a certain look. It's just the offense looked horrible play design-wise, like 9 times out of 10. He would make his rookie mistakes, like maybe 8 times out of 10, maybe 9 times was too much, but you get what I'm saying. So where I'm at with Thomas Brown, to be quite honest with you, man, with the improvements that we've seen, because what I said last week was this team is picking up what he's putting down. They're blocking harder. We're seeing Keenan, Rome, DJ do their thing. Screens are crisper. There's not as many pre-snap penalties. There, you get the occasional hold or whatnot, but things are just on point to where they need to be. Are they perfect? No, but it's common sense stuff. So I want Thomas Brown, and the ownership is they're too big of cowards to do this, but he should be in the driver's seat to be getting a look at being the head coach. I think I felt a tad bit different last week when, I was like, you know what? I want him to only focus on the offense and only have Caleb do it. But realistically, Flus is leaving. There's no way he's here. So you have a guy in the building who everyone renownedly respects. The offense loves him. We were really mad at DJ Moore for being, a poor sport. I don't know what you'd call it. He was not being, fun to watch. But I think that was due to Waldron. That's changed these last 2 weeks. He's back to being the DJ that we know and love. I think that speaks volumes to what Thomas Brown has done, the confidence that he's instilled in Caleb Williams. If you can do that right now with a rookie quarterback who, for all intents and purposes was down in the dumps with this OC, where I'm at with it, Jack, is I want Flus to be fired after Thanksgiving and you get this guy the last 5 games to see, can he do this head coaching thing? Where do you differ with me? Where are you at with it?
Honestly, it's a little bit tough because while I agree with everything on its face value, the problem I'm having with letting Flus go and then promoting Thomas Brown is at this moment, all I really care about is the development of Caleb Williams. And we said that basically from week 1 on. And it's only become more so now that this team is obviously not going to be making the playoffs and having any postseason success. Now you're kind of obviously back to hoping for a higher draft pick, of course, which seems tough because the rest of the league is just awful right now. It's like they're I think they're 12th. They'd have the 12th overall pick at 4-7. So just a tough place to be. But Frank, the reason that I'm having trouble on kind of what I want them to do with Matt Eberflus is because Thomas Brown wasn't offensive coordinator since week 1. He's only been in this role for 2 weeks now, and he's sort of starting to put things together. Things seem to be working and clicking with Caleb Williams. I don't really want to add a ton more to his plate right now if it's going to potentially impact the way that Caleb is performing. Now, I would assume if Thomas Brown was promoted to head coach, or interim head coach, I should say, that he would still call plays. My only thing is, what is going to happen with the rest of the responsibilities? Not only that, you can't call from the booth. You can't play call from the booth when you're the head coach. And obviously we've seen that he has preferred, he's obviously chosen to do it from the booth to call plays. So it's things like that that make me question if that would be the right decision. Obviously, like you were saying, I would like, he was the assistant head coach with Sean McVay when they won the Super Bowl after like only his second year in coaching overall. So like, to me, this is a different type of candidate, right? This is a guy that's well respected in the league. Obviously Matt Eberflus had to give himself a nice pat on the back today when he was talking about how great of a job he did, getting Thomas Brown in the building. And it's like, I just don't understand the process of how he was hired over Shane Waldron. I asked that last week, and I still need that question answered, because just hearing him talk, the way the offense has responded, the way the guys have responded to him, it really makes you wonder why this guy wasn't the choice at the beginning or in the offseason to build around your rookie quarterback. It's just very strange. And again, I don't want to ramble too much, but to answer your question, Frank, does what I'm saying kind of make sense? How do you feel about what I'm saying, just in the sense that, like, he was the passing game coordinator, and then 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, whatever it is, he's going to be the head coach of the
No,
team?
for sure. It's certainly, unorthodox if that were to happen. I think your best point in terms of pushback on me and maybe not wanting it to happen is the booth stuff. I did disregard that. That being said, I think he's very good at what he's doing. I don't know, or I would hope that wouldn't be too big of a detriment. But what I was going to retort with is something that you actually said. The way he carries himself, the way he speaks to the media. We're hearing players in stark contrast to the way they responded to Shane Waldron about needing to be coached harder, needing to know exactly what's happening. People, what was it that, was it DJ Moore or Keenan after the fact? They're like, yeah, we were sort of like lollygagging in OTAs, and like, people were just sort of taking advantage of different things. Like, if that was Thomas Brown, he wouldn't have put up with that shit. You know what I mean? Like, if he was the OC, if that was his unit to be in charge of, that's very clear from the way these guys are talking about him, responding to him, that he knows how to command a room, lead men, and garner the respect of them. So to me, I get what you're saying. I accept it. I don't agree with all of it. I think it would be beneficial to all parties involved for two reasons. One, you tell Thomas Brown, listen, this isn't guaranteeing you anything in terms of being here, because if I don't know if you tell him this portion, but like, if I'm Ryan Poles, my two guys still that I would hire over him, regardless of what happens this year, would be Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel. Those are the two that you blank check them. But if they don't come here and you do very well, we just promote you. You would be the head coach then for the 4-year contract or whatever it would be. But even with that, you now had a 5-game sample size. You've been interviewing for head coaching jobs, and you've almost gotten some. You've gotten to final interviews. This is your sample size to say, listen, y'all, I can do this shit. So even if it didn't work out here, look at what has happened to Antonio Pierce. If he was going to be hired elsewhere, had the Raiders not retained him, he had interviews elsewhere. This would be a very similar situation with him. I think it would be beneficial for both, but I don't think we would lose all that much with the development of Caleb. And I listen, Jack, dare I say, even in a 5-game sample size, what he's instilled in Caleb, that may be being instilled in other people across the whole roster. Like, it's very clear to me. What did Caleb say? It's just his aura. It's the way he communicated. We're talking about communication and such. I think he can have that same effect on the whole roster given the chance.
That's a good point. And something, obviously, can't know for sure, we can't even quantify really, is Thomas Brown has been here the entire offseason, right? He's been here in the OTAs. He's been here in training camp. He's been here since the start of the season. And the fact that, you know, he didn't overstep his bounds at all, you know, with he didn't go over Shane Waldron's head. He obviously has not gone over Matt Eberflus's head. I think that just shows a good amount of respect. And I think as a former player, a lot of guys are able to buy what he's selling, with a lot of it, because just understanding how it's supposed to operate. So again, on its face, and I'm not, you know, I know you said push back to you. I'm really not pushing back to you directly. It's mostly just something to think about, really. And again, it's tough for me because you're right. It would be unorthodox, obviously, to go from, you know, passing game coordinator to, you know, just head coach, basically interim head coach, in a 3 to 4 week stretch. But this is why they should have just let Eberflus go. If this is what they were going, and again, the part of it too, it wasn't even guaranteed that Shane Waldron was going to be let go until Tuesday, the Tuesday after that game, like after the New England game. Like,
when it was reported that someone, I don't know if it was Poles or Warren, that like they told him, no, you have to do this. He wanted to put him up in the booth. He was going to give him another shot in the booth.
Correct. And so the idea that Matt Eberflus would have been fired was never, obviously wasn't even on the table at that point. So it to me, it's just like, are you really going to be able to get enough out of Thomas Brown? We've seen so many of these interim head coaches obviously not pan out. They get the rest 8, 7, 6 games to show what they could look like with a full, with in the command chair, kind of running the operation. But it's just so different, especially with how you set up your OTAs, how you set up the offseason, all of that stuff. What do you look for in scouting? Everything that comes with it. I am totally on board with you that he should get an interview no matter what. He absolutely needs to be interviewed for the head coaching position. I am right there with you. My only thing, though, is, again, with Brian Pohl's status being up in the air, I think it is, does it really do a whole lot for you if your GM that maybe will be making that hiring decision isn't even in the building at that point? He may be, I would say probably Ryan Poles is what? I'd give him maybe 75% that he's back next year.
I was going to say 80. Yeah, we're in the same ballpark.
Right around there. Definitely more likely he's back than Matt Eberflus at this point. It's just such a short amount of time, and if they were going to do it, they should have done it when they let go Shane Waldron. So I'm at a toss-up. Like, if it happens, great. Let's get this show on the road. Fuck Matt Eberflus. This team is just falling apart under his watch. If they want to show what he's got, as long as it doesn't, my main point, as long as it doesn't impact what happens with Caleb and the offense as they've played obviously much better football these last couple weeks.
Yeah, and again, I wouldn't forecast that being the problem. I think where Thomas Brown is in his career as a play caller, as a potential head coach, is, can you be a guy that is a Sean McVay, a Kyle Shanahan, one of these dudes who really separates themselves, because he's got the basics down. And, you think about the pre-snap movement that he has on these dudes, the usage of DJ Moore out of the backfield, like, he's doing already things that, Matt Nagy didn't do a lot of that type of stuff. His is very static routes. His is very motionless offense. It was the 101 to the 202, the weird complex. Thomas has the common sense portion nailed. And the fact that he was able to self-identify things on a short week to say, hey, we can already be doing this better. And they asked him going into this past week, hey, do you think you can add more wrinkles in? He's like, of course I can. And he's already talking about, like, it's not up to me to be comfortable. It's up to me to make them comfortable. I don't have, like, a set thing that I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to maximize the talent. Like, he has all of that. So that's why I don't think he would lose it. Maybe pushback was a little too strong. You were just presenting the reason maybe why not to do it. And I understand that. I totally do. I just, to me, I guess my ultimate point is if he is going to be a head coaching candidate for the Chicago Bears next year, what better chance do you have than to audition the guy for X amount of games? Because again, if we're not in agreement that Eberflus is gone, and I don't mean we know we are. I'm talking about polls and the other decision makers. Then you all can be shown the door as well. Like that scenario, I'm not living with. There's nothing that Matt Eberflus could do short of winning out and winning a Super Bowl that he's back, and that's not happening.
No, it's not. And to Thomas Brown's credit, he kept the best pass rushing defense, the highest blitzing defense to 3 sacks. That should be applauded. And the target distribution I thought was great. Like you were talking about the usage of DJ Moore, that little trick play that he had where he got DJ Moore throwing the football. Those are the type of stuff that I think gets players more engaged. It's football. It's supposed to be fun. And especially for professionals, you do that kind of stuff. It gets people engaged. It keeps the defense on its toes. I thought the target distribution was great. Kind of what we would like to see, I think, moving forward. Maybe a couple changes here or there. Like we said, we'll talk about it in a second in regards to the entire offense. Maybe a little more balance, from what I should say, a little less balance from what we saw last week with the run game. Definitely was not super effective this week, unfortunately, outside of Caleb Williams, making some things happen. But overall, if I were to give a grade for Thomas Brown for this week specifically, I'd B+. I think is more than fair.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit lower.
I was going to say like
A with that run game.
A-.
Yeah.
And really the reason that I have it, so I mean, if you're sticking with B+, I think I have it a notch above, because the one thing that you talked about, it just goes in the same thing of like they're picking up what he's putting down, because this offensive line these last 2 weeks has looked like a different offensive line.
Correct.
The sacks, except for one this past week against the Vikings and maybe one against Green Bay, they have been largely on Caleb Williams, which I'll live with. That's going to be a sword that it's going to be a double-edged sword his whole career. He's going to extend plays and make a fucking crazy throw like he did to DeAndre Swift. He's going to take a really bad sack like he did in overtime. We're going to live with that just like Seattle did with Russell Wilson in his prime. So it's going to, you take the good with the bad. Hopefully there's a lot more good. But this offensive line, this isn't just Caleb getting the ball out quick. He is, because the route concepts are there for it and they're really good. And he's dialing up those unsackable plays, like he said. But even when it's time to let these longer routes develop, whatever he's got going on with this, I don't know if it's just a lockstep thing with the routes, or again, what I speculated last week was, are you now just having a guard or the center identify, blitzes and stunts and things, and letting Caleb just do it? Because I think that degree of separation is very good for the whole offense as well, especially for a young quarterback. So whatever he's doing, I don't know what the hell it is, it's working. And that offensive line looks incredibly better than what it did earlier in the year.
Everything looks on rhythm, and I think this is a good segue into Caleb Williams specifically, but just to stick with Thomas Brown for a second here, it looks like his footwork has been corrected for a good majority. Like when he's dropping back, his drop backs are in sync with what routes are taking place. He's not taking a 1.5 step drop, hitch, throw the ball on a route that might need 3 steps, 5 steps, 7 steps, like everything just looked out of sync. I would say it still, it still happened, here or there a little more than I would like, but definitely a lot less of the receivers being out of sync with Caleb. And I think a lot of that is something you've brought up a number of times, has been the option routes. Everything seems like it has a purpose. Everything is being called with a purpose. And a lot of these routes are kind of like combination routes and a lot easier to read from 1 to 2 to 3. So and you credit that to coaching. Absolutely. This offense looks a lot less random than what we had seen in that just terrible 3-game stretch out of that bye, where I can't believe how just wrong I was about that bye week being a big deal like that. I've never seen anything quite like this, where you come out of the bye and you're just one of the worst teams in football. It's truly crazy what we have seen. But talking about crazy, let's move over. Let's talk about the quarterback, because it all ends with him in terms of what this thing will really look like moving forward. And Frank, I can confidently say we've been kind of in the back, of the masses yelling, it's fine, he's fine, everything's gonna be fine. They have their quarterback of the future. There's no doubt about it. And that game just absolutely proved it. Caleb Williams, 32, 47, 340 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, a passer rating of 103.1, 6 carries, 33 yards. Took a couple of sacks that he shouldn't have. I do want to talk about that last sack, because I was watching the All-22 and I found something a little bit interesting about it. But let's stick with Caleb. Frank, those are the throws we've been waiting for, man. Those piss missiles that he's just stepping up into the pocket, confidently throwing into tight windows. There was that one in the first quarter, I think it was, where he just he threw it to Keenan. I thought the ball had either gotten batted down or picked off, and Keenan's just running away for another 10 to 15 yards. And I just was like, wait, what just happened? What just happened? We haven't seen arm strength like that since Jay Cutler.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the DJ Moore throw to lead to the field goal to tie it up. There was a couple of Cole Kmet throws down the seam that were fucking incredible. That one that you just talked about, the Keenan Allen, obviously the highlight of the day was that rolling right. I mean, he just jumps off of both feet and just lofts it to DeAndre Swift on an absolute rope. I mean, listen, again, you were right. Me and you were banging the table saying, I know it doesn't look great. And Nas.
His flowers.
Yeah. And Nas saying, I know it doesn't look great, but and I know it's become a common thing to blame offensive coordinators, but I do think us in particular, I can't speak for everybody who makes Bears content, was able to separate what the OC was doing wrong and where the quarterback was going wrong. And that dates back to Mitch Trubisky. We've been doing this. And again, when you break down the All-22, Caleb's eyes and where he's looking and looking at reads and going through his progressions is already more advanced than anything we've ever had before. So he still has some inaccuracy issues every now and then. We'll continue to notate those. But we, at the end of the day, knew things were right, because what we saw, something that you were sort of bringing up, I mean, we haven't seen in the last 2 weeks a receiver and a tight end being in the same exact spot because they thought that was the route they were supposed to run. Everything's there. So when we knew he was going to get this competent play calling or whenever it was going to happen, we were going to get this. And he was absolutely phenomenal. I think that outside of his arm talent, which is there, and his ability to read a defense, which is there, his IQ is extremely high. His ability to manipulate with his eyes is extremely high. Some of these throws, as soon as he threw them, I just remember it was 2 weeks after drafting him, and he was throwing to DJ and I think Rome in the offseason, and they were like, yeah, I know, you guys are shorts and shirt, and pads aren't on or whatever, but is there any differences that you see with Caleb? And DJ is his anticipation is crazy. It's there. I can see. And I'm just looking at some of these throws, that's what DJ was talking about right there. It was incredible. But Jack, the last thing with me is he's doing what we were telling him to do earlier in the year. Which once you feel that pressure, once you even if you feel like you're leaving the pocket a little too early, that's okay. Use your gifts to your advantage. Roll to the right, roll to the left, move up and do things so to me, that was very clearly a Waldron thing to stay in the pocket for as long as possible, get through X amount of reads before you even consider it, because he's just playing so much more free and loose. And to your point, just these piss missiles, just letting those fucking things up. That throw, I know we've had some, you're thinking of the Mitch one where he's rolling right and throws it 60. We had some crazy throws from quarterbacks in the past. Jay has made some phenomenal throws, even Caleb this year. But that throw in the fourth quarter, stepping up in the pocket, just a fucking missile to DJ Moore to lead to that field goal. Not only because of the situation itself, but that's a grown man quarterback throw right there. That's just a professional. Again, we're going to be wowed by other throws in his career. We were wowed by another one in the game where he's rolling right, craziness that had but just the ability to combine being a magician with being a quarterback is, I mean, people talk about redrafts and blah, blah, blah and shit. Cut it out. Cut it the fuck out. Just watch this kid play football.
Yeah, the redraft stuff. Jesus Christ. I used to think redrafts were silly after the first year, and now
Agreed.
people are doing it mid fucking season. Like, what what are we doing here? No, they, again, you make a really good point about the magician stuff, because I'm much more impressed with the in structure throws than I am. I mean, obviously, like the throw that he made to DeAndre Swift, like, I hate to go Chris Collinsworth or Tony Romo here, but it's a little Matt Stafford the original creator of that. I mean, that's special shit. Like, we've talked about it. Like even when Caleb was struggling in those games, against Arizona and Washington, there were still special throws. But like, the in structure stuff is what makes me so excited, because that's what professional quarterback looks like. That's the difference between some of the guys that you were mentioning that have played quarterback here, in Chicago before. That's the biggest difference is those throws. They can happen, right? Zach Wilson can do those types of throws, but when your quarterback can consistently win from the pocket, those are the guys who are going to be here the longest. And one of the things that did not get talked about enough, and hasn't really been talked about enough, especially these last couple of weeks with Caleb running the way he has, I am so impressed with his ability to, and his willingness to not just take shots. He's very smart about the way he runs. He knows when to get out of bounds. He isn't going for that extra yard. You saw it on that one at the end of the game where he leaps over the guy and keeps running on that fourth down to get out of bounds. He was angling to get an extra yard, saw the guy coming, and just said, nope, I'm going to veer off and just whatever. It is what it is. Like, that's the stuff I like seeing with guys who run and who are athletic like Caleb, because we've seen a lot of quarterbacks who are just, I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you, I'm going to take a couple of these hits. It's fine. I want that extra yard. I love the way that he's protecting himself. And that's something that I think just that's the look of a guy who is going to be in this spot, this situation for a very, very long time. And it's really, really exciting, honestly. Again, that's not even talking about some of those throws that he was making, because my God, the one thing, Frank, that I do want to talk about with all of this great stuff that we saw, there's the fact that there's still very clear room for improvement is very exciting to me. He's not a finished product. We saw that throw to Rome. He had Rome. How many of those have we seen this year where it's like, yeah, God, if he could just complete those throws, I'd feel a lot better. But then he comes right back and throws one right to Rome, and Rome makes it, or that might have been a couple plays before now that I'm thinking about it. But
no, that may have been the next play. I think the missed shot to Rome was a third down, and then it was a fourth down, I think.
In the window throw, right, to Rome, where Rome is just makes an absolutely incredible catch. Like, there's such clear improvement, like room for improvement with Caleb, that I think with good quality coaching that we saw with Thomas Brown these last couple weeks, I mean, it just, I don't know how you watch what he did against the Vikings and come away thinking, oh man, Bo Nix would be really nice in this offense. Jaden Daniels, maybe Drake May. Like, I don't know, man. If you're not sold on Caleb after this game, then just find a new team to root for, because you're not going to ever be in on this guy.
No, I'm right there with you. And I think that's a good segue into the sack that, me and you will both share our thoughts on, because that is what you're going to have these guys who, what you just described, they're never going to be sold on him. They're going to have some weird agenda, whether it's the Fields cult or whatever reason you don't like the guy or didn't want him here. The sack was bad. Again, I always like to credit ourselves with the ability to, just call things like they were. And even in the moment, just watching it, I think we were texting, I was like, Caleb, that was totally on him. You have 5-6 seconds to throw. You either throw that, you roll out, you throw that thing away, or I mean, maybe even try to run, I don't know. But the biggest thing, he missed Swift on that little dump off. To throw him a little bit of a bone, Swift and or Kmet should have broke off of it like a second or two early. They both had the guys. They didn't need to block him that long. That was okay. But even then, once Swift did break off, Caleb did look at him And he got a little bit spooked that the defensive end was kind of in his face, and he could have just made a nice little dump off. And I didn't see the all 22 on that particular play, but it looked like there was some decent green in front of him that he could have moved. So I guess final point for me in the whole Caleb section or segment of the House of Halas episode 1 is I gave him an A-. We mentioned some of the misses that he had that lowered his grade a tad bit, but it just is made up for by the big time throws that he made. It would have been, I think, an A had he not taken that sack, potentially an A+ if you lead the team to the overtime win with a touchdown.
So call me crazy. I'm giving him an A+.
Wow, even with the sack at the end?
Even with the sack, because
talk to me, Jackie.
They shouldn't even been in overtime if it wasn't for him.
That's fair.
Caleb's fourth quarter numbers are just absolutely in. This dude, get him a competent head coach, get him a competent play caller, get him a good, whatever you need to get him. He's going to be a quarterback that you win a lot of games with. Now, I know it doesn't look like it right now. They're 4-7. He hasn't played great these last 2 games. I think he's been phenomenal. Like, he's shown this is the type of quarterback that you are going to win games with. Caleb Williams. Now, think about this, Frank. Think about how good the Vikings have been when it comes to blitzing quarterbacks. I'm going to read you this tweet here from PFF, if you will. Caleb Williams versus the blitz in his last 2 games. 86.2% adjusted completion rate, 276 passing yards, 4 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays against the blitz. And ideally, that's what the blitz is there for. It's to get young quarterbacks panicked into making mistakes. He has not thrown anything that could be considered a turnover-worthy play in the last 2 weeks against the blitz. That's special stuff, man. Like, Caleb Williams, he did everything he possibly could to get this team into overtime. And for that reason, I have to give him an A+. I get it. The sack was not good. But I also wasn't as bad as I think a lot of people, especially when you're looking at the TV or watching on TV, what it looked like, because you can't see the entire play. The play design was not very good. It was 3 guys, his 3 receivers going to one side of the field, carrying the entire defense over with them. There wasn't a lot of spacing. There was really nowhere to go with the football. I agree with you that he should have had the dump off. The problem is, like you were saying, Cole Kmet and DeAndre Swift were both blocking the same guy. They both decided to let that guy go free and then tried to leak out as the flat route. One of them, they needed to do a better job of communicating. One had to go while the other kept that guy contained. Caleb just didn't have anywhere to go with the football. Now, obviously, there was a lot of time to roll right, maybe just throw it away. Totally agree with you. But in regards to was there anywhere else for him to really go with the football, because I know that's obviously been a big talking point, he's maybe just not seeing it. On that specific play, there was not really anywhere to go. And then obviously Kmet and Swift made the mistake of both letting the guy just sort of run free, and Caleb had really nowhere to go with it. So it was bad. It can't happen. It's a great learning opportunity for him. But that being said, it wasn't like he just didn't see Rome running wide open free.
Right.
He just missed him or anything like that, or just made a bad throw. So it can't happen. It wasn't a good look, but I don't think it was as bad as I initially thought it was. So with that being said, I still have to give him an A+, because just the way that he kept this team in the game, the big throws, I mean, the windows that this dude was throwing into, Frank, it doesn't get any better than that. You could put any quarterback in there, and it can't get any better than what Caleb was doing this week specifically.
I agree. I just think a couple of the missed throws.
That's fair.
I don't hate the A+ because the logic being, you're right. The logic is there. They don't even get to overtime without some of the insane throws and plays that he made. Totally get that. I'm just saying you sound like Hillary Clinton. That's all.
Love it. I get my pantsuit. I'm getting fitted for it. Frank, the one last thing that we wanted to touch on in regards to the offense is the Keenan Allen usage, because it's been a big talking point for the last couple of weeks here. Keenan Allen was the highest targeted wide receiver by Caleb Williams, 15 targets. He had 9 catches for 86 yards and, of course, a touchdown as well. Cole Kmet, Rome Odunze were both behind him with 10 targets, and then DJ Moore was 4th in targets with 7, obviously going very efficient, 7 catches for in those 7 targets. Frank, what are your thoughts on Keenan Allen being the highest targeted receiver by Caleb Williams this week?
I didn't even know what the numbers were prior to this recording. I know we discussed a little bit before we hit record, but even without knowing the numbers, well, I guess this is why it looks that way. He just feels like the focal point of the passing game still, even with Shane Waldron not being here. And I'm not trying to make that as a slight towards Thomas Brown. It's very clearly something they see in this guy, or maybe it's just Caleb's comfortability with him. But, I'm not saying he doesn't have a role in this offense. He can still do really, really good things. I like him as sort of a safety blanket. He almost made an insane catch with the toe tap on the sideline that would have been the catch of the day, probably the catch of the year in Chicago. But the focal point thing is what bothers me with him. And I sort of look at where he is skill set wise. How old is he? 32? He's my age. My knees are probably a little better than his right now. But anyway, he doesn't bring an explosive element to this offense the way that DJ Moore does or Rome Odunze does. Dare I even say DeAndre Swift, if you were to involve him in a little bit more in the pass game, just from an explosive standpoint. He's probably still the best route runner on the team. If not, he's a very close second to Rome Odunze, whose tape still is magnificent when you watch the All-22. His route running is very good. From an explosive standpoint, he's not those guys. And then I look at what Cole Kmet does outside of just the raw route running. He will never be the route runner that Keenan Allen is. But in terms of a safety blanket, in terms of what you can do to provide your quarterback, on 3rd and short or 3rd and intermediate or clogging up the middle of the field, do I think Keenan is better or that much better that you spent a 4th round pick on the guy? I don't know. I don't think so. So again, I'm not saying he doesn't have a role. He very clearly, makes timely catches. He makes fucking timely drops sometimes too that are very annoying. But he doesn't bring anything to this offense, or he doesn't bring what I thought he could have to this offense thus far. And he's on a 1-year contract. And I'm also thinking, are we even going to re-sign the guy? Because he's eating into targets to guys that I think are more explosive than him, to a guy that, in Rome Odunze, who I think is probably already should be the wide receiver 1 of this team. His tape is incredible. And he's also he has more drops this year than he had in his whole career combined, damn near. He has not had a great year in Chicago. So where I'm at with it is, again, I'm not saying flat out cut the guy. I think Caleb, there's value in leaving him here, obviously. Caleb trusts him. He's a sturdy target, but 15 targets. And there's been other games where he's been the number 1 targeted guy. He cannot be the number 1 option on this football team.
I think it's really interesting that he is the number 1 option on this team. Caleb clearly trusts him a ton, and it's fascinating, to be honest with you. The way that he talks to Rome, it sounds like they have a really good connection, or a good chemistry. Obviously him and DJ Moore have had their interesting first year together, to say the least. It's interesting that Caleb just kind of looks to go Keenan's way. And you're right, Keenan has had some just brutal drops, and he's not elevating the way that makes any sense to me, to be honest with you. He's just not elevating from the way that we've seen him be able to do. And it's odd that he's being asked to do these things. I think of that fade on the 2-point conversion, where it's that should be Rome. Rome is better at that than Keenan is at this point in his career. So that I'm questioning a lot this season. I would really like to see a little bit better usage out of Keenan and just more involvement again from Rome. 10 targets still really good. It's just the way that those targets, where those targets are coming. And then again, I want to see DeAndre Swift get the football a little bit more, especially in the pass game. Like he's somebody that you just have to get involved on screens, or even just direct targets, like in the pass game. It's something I do definitely want to see a little bit more. I don't know how many more drops I can handle when it comes to Keenan Allen.
I also just think of, like, from a diversity standpoint in building this receiving core, I'm counting Kmet in that because, again, I think he could be your third down safety valve. He had a bad drop. Like, people are going to be, oh my God, he dropped one. I get it. People drop things. I totally understand that. But in terms of the role, I think he could do that just as well, if not better, than Keenan. But then, I mean, we're sometimes tasking Rome Odunze to be like, just take the top off the defense. Here's a go route. When it's like, let him take up more of the X receiving duties, have DJ be the Y. I mean, even be like the Debo guy. He's coming out of the backfield a little bit now. And you have to, like, elevate Tyler Scott. Let him be the go route guy for 15 times a game. Like, I'm not a big Tyler Scott guy. I'm not saying like let's do. I'm just saying from what we have on the roster. But get a speedster to, like, make up for you losing Keenan and have these other guys play a little bit different of a role. Like, I just, from a diversity standpoint, he doesn't, like, I don't know. I just don't think he brings what I thought he was going to bring to this offense, and I'm growing frustrated with it.
Could we not see Tyler Scott over DeAndre Carter?
Like, well, DeAndre's really, I know he had the mistake this past week, but he's a pretty solid return guy. He's been the best return guy we've had probably since Tyreek, yeah?
That was unacceptable. He should be fired. Cut. Let's get Tyler Scott in there. See what he's got. I mean, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Can we not throw, like, the lack of, I guess if there was one last thing that I wanted to mention on Thomas Brown, I need to see a couple more deep shots taken. That's kind of the next step I want to see. And again, maybe it's just because they don't have that guy, but then get Rome out there. Like, Rome, I can do it, and Tyler Scott should be doing it. Though that's kind of his skill set. That's sort of what he was doing. So I get Mercedes Lewis off of this team, and let, like, is Gerald Everett, is he alive? Did he go with Shane Waldron? I
think he left. Which I think him and Travis Homer both have gone home. They're back in the Pacific Northwest.
Ridiculous. All right, let's flip the field here. Let's talk a little head coach, little Matt Eberflus, who is still currently, unfortunately, the Bears head coach.
Eberflus has been the growing nickname on social media, and I enjoy it.
5-18 in one-score games. They gave up. What they give up? Let's see. Final drive. The Vikings had. Oh. It just reloaded. Give me 1 second. The Vikings on the final drive in overtime, they were 2nd and 17, 1st and 15, 1st and 20. They converted all of those into first downs. Obviously, we had the highest passer rated quarterback of the day being Nick Mullins, 1 for 1 with 14-yard passing yards to Aaron Jones for that. What was it, Frank? 3rd and 13?
3rd and 13, back-to-back.
Because Matt Eberflus had to play the white picket fence style defense that we just love so much here in Chicago. Frank, what else can we say that we haven't said these last 3 years, these last few weeks? Like, this guy is the definition of a coward, of a guy just trying so hard to not lose games that he just doesn't know how to win games.
Yep.
Where are you at? I mean, I know we're kind of all on the same page. I would be shocked if our House of Halas listeners didn't already know where you were at with Matt Eberflus, but was there anything else that you sort of gleaned from this week's game?
Well, I mean, he continues to be a coward, like you said, and I had it notated even earlier than the 3rd and 13s, that the field goal that got blocked. This is before. I take notes as the game goes on for those listeners who may not know that, and that's usually why I'm looking at my phone. People seem like staring. I'm looking at my phone to go through notes to make sure I'm hitting points that I wanted to. After the Keenan catch gets overturned, I think it was another play, and it was 4th and 4, and Caleb clearly wants to go for this. The whole offense wants to go for this. He settles for the field goal. I jot down settling for a 48-yard field goal on 4th and 4 when the offense is humming is cowardice. And sure enough, the field goal gets blocked. Of course it does. And later in the game, you touched on the 3rd and 13s, the 4th down conversions. he was calling that overtime like they needed a touchdown to score the game and he was going to let them kick the field goal. That's exactly what he called that defense like, because the commentators notated it quite a few times throughout the game. The Bears' red zone defense is best in the league. I don't mind a bend but don't break defense that turns the ball over. We had that for years with Lovey. That's an effective defense right there. I don't mind that at all. But situationally, he is so fucking bad at his job. It's ridiculous. And this does not just go back to him being the Bears head coach. There's film of him being the DC of the Indianapolis Colts, of him doing the exact same thing. And if anyone were to have any different opinion, any doubts, or any sort of inkling of like, maybe we can give him one more year, Nick Mullins didn't even have time to warm up. He tossed like 2 warm-up tosses. It's not warm weather out here. We're in the 40s. It's a little chilly. He's sitting on the pine the whole day. He gets on, tosses on the chin strap, gets the helmet on. 3rd and 13, fucking dart to a, I mean, Kevin Byard was like 6 yards away. I don't remember who made Addison Russell. Holy shit. Jordan Addison was the guy
nice
who,
yeah.
The Corked Up podcast is here to stay apparently. But I mean, what are we doing, man? Like, if we get beat by Sam Darnold, and he made some good throws, he made some tight window throws this game. Let's make no mistake, he didn't play like a bum at all. This defense did not do to him what I thought they would, even before Flus got very conservative. He played well. Now, if he was dotting the Bears up like Caleb was dotting on the Vikings, you live with those losses. Okay, cool. Sam just played better. There were times I notated as I'm taking notes, like this wasn't a play to me that I felt like, the offense didn't execute. Defense just made a play, and that happens sometimes. But when Eberflus is calling these 3rd and 13 soft shell cover 2, let's have all the corners line up right at the first down marker type of thing. Let's have no blitzes at all. We're sending no pressure, even though 4 has not gotten home all game. It's just a wrapped up nice little Christmas package of you suck. Because he like and I'll end it with this. We consistently had said he's a bad head coach, good defensive coordinator. Jack, I'm here to tell you that we were wrong. We were just flat out wrong. Because, again, we were sort of having these creeping thoughts of like, well, is that the case? Because he wasn't a good DC until Montez Sweat got here. This was a year and a half of him fucking sucking. And then Montez Sweat gets here, he multiplies and things start to happen. But now we're starting to see it sort of this year. Andrew Billings, who was having a phenomenal few games before he goes out with the pec injury, he's gone. Linebacker play starts to look shaky because that middle isn't there. Secondary pieces are starting to fall a little bit. Maybe Jaquan Brisker means a little more to this team than we thought. But my overall point is the talent is starting to lessen because of injury. Where is this defensive guy that we hired? Where is this good defensive coordinator that the Bears hired? He's not there. He doesn't exist. We were we were wrong. Not that anyone called us out about it. I guess I'm calling us out about it. We were fucking wrong, Jack. He's not even a good defensive coordinator.
Yeah, again, it's tough because, this is the way that Ryan Poles assembled this team, right? Like he did not invest in the defensive line. He did not really invest in the offensive line enough, in our opinion. And yeah, injuries do happen, of course. But, even without the depth, like there isn't a whole lot outside of Montez Sweat. And he's obviously playing hurt right now. And Tyreek Stevenson has not been good at all this season, especially lately. He's been really, really questionable. Terrell Smith has, I think, outplayed him to this point. And that's not even counting some of the mental, obviously the mental side of it. It's not a good look. And again, these are questions that I was asking, bringing up when it came to that New England game a few years ago. Like he's done nothing to answer any of these questions. And I remember earlier this season, I asked you on this podcast, I named off every single head coach in the NFC North. And I asked you, who would you rather have this person over Flus, or would you have Matt LaFleur or Matt Eberflus? You said Matt LaFleur. I said, would you rather have Dan Campbell or Matt Eberflus? You said Dan Campbell. And then I said, would you rather have Kevin O'Connell or would you rather have Matt Eberflus? Every single time you went with the guy who wasn't named Matt Eberflus. And Kevin O'Connell just outcoached Matt Eberflus today. Or not today, but in that game. And like not even from the play calling side, just from having the confidence in your own players to pick certain things up. He just knew how to beat this defense, and he did with Sam Darnold and Jordan Addison, and a lot of, again, miscommunications in certain zones where at the end of the game, when you had to have it, Jordan Addison being covered by Kevin Byard. And Kevin Byard is playing 10 yards off because he's the safety, because the corner who was supposed to be covering him in that zone, who I believe was Jalen Johnson, decided to triple cover Justin Jefferson, who hadn't done anything all game.
And Jalen had a bad game. I know we don't have a point for him. He had a bad game. Everyone's talking about the 1 for 7 for Justin. He had a really bad game. That was not reflective of the game that Jalen Johnson had.
If you go to that and look at that box score and say Jalen Johnson is fine, like, you weren't watching the game, because this defense that's not how they play. They don't follow. He doesn't shadow their best receiver. It's right, left. It's Richard Sherman, and then whoever decided they had at the other corner. That's the way they play this defense. This defense is so just early to mid 2000s, like. It doesn't work in today's NFL. It just doesn't. And you're right. Like, he was playing like they had a field goal to give in overtime. That's just not the case. And again, we saw it with Jim Harbaugh that same week of the Packers block kick where they didn't just settle. He gave the ball to J.K. Dobbins and he scored a 20-yard plus touchdown run. Kevin O'Connell just did it again this week. He didn't settle on second down for the kick. He went ahead and threw the ball to TJ Hawkinson and got it. Because he has confidence in his players. He's playing, they're playing to win versus Matt Eberflus, who is just playing to not lose. And it's a culture that I think is really starting to set in with some of these guys, where it's just like, who cares? Because if you listen to Matt Eberflus after the game, no matter what happens, he's proud of the guys. He's happy with the guys. He loves the performance. Nothing's ever wrong. And I hate that type of mindset, because your team is just on a skid and he just has no answers. The fact that there was another blocked field goal, Frank, this week in the same spot on the same side of the line as last week and almost happened again. It's so unacceptable. I don't know how we are still here with it.
Yeah. Jackie, I know I said last point, but you reminded me when you said that when Eberflus, I thought you were going to bring this up. His answer, because we didn't even talk about the failed challenge yet again. Did you see his answer to the challenge? This is their process. We've made fun of him saying process.
Process.
Right.
Our process is good.
He delved into what his process is. Did you
for
see
those
this?
For those who didn't see it, let's hear it.
I was trying to find the actual tweet, so this isn't verbatim, but he essentially said, well, anytime there's an explosive play like that, you want to break the momentum, and like you if it's on close to the sideline like that, you got to throw the challenge flag just to see if there's a chance that he could have went out of bounds. And like everyone, I did not see the reporters. I don't know if they had a follow-up question or their faces or anything, but everyone on social media was like, you have to be fucking shitting me. Because, I mean, you just told that, like, there are times where you just tell on yourself. You love bringing up the time when that Matt Nagy, we had like nothing to talk about in the offseason, and Matt Nagy's like, sometimes I'm just fucking I'm letting the play calls rip. And I'm like, all right, that's not a good process to this whole thing. It was early. It was after he won Coach of the Year, so we gave him the benefit of the doubt. But there are times now that I think I'm savvy enough where I see where you're telling on yourself. I wasn't savvy enough then where he was telling on himself. You just told on yourself, dude. You have no fucking clue what you're doing. You're just like, yeah, fuck it. 69-yard reception. He was close. He could have been out right there. We don't need it. We don't need to hear it in the headset. And granted, he was out, but they just can't use the camera. But again, it's about the process itself. That's a poor decision making. That's poor decision making. You just say, yeah, fuck it. I threw it because it was a big game.
Just if you want to break it up, just call a timeout.
Yeah.
If you want to break momentum, just call a timeout. Now, granted, like you just said, he was absolutely out of bounds. He did step out of bounds, but apparently there are certain cameras that can't be used on challenges versus scoring plays. So weird. So if I'm understanding this correctly, if Jordan Addison had scored on that play, it would have been overturned, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a good point. It would have, because they would have been able to review it
to use the boundary cam.
Yep.
That apparently can't be used. Like, what is that? What?
Well, so I think the logic is that every stadium can't have the same exact cameras. I'm not here for equity, motherfuckers. If you can't put a camera in your stadium, fuck you. Then the rule doesn't apply to you. Like, you just don't get that at that angle. What are we talking about right now?
What home field advantage isn't a thing? Certain stadiums, the way that they're structured, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah,
it's all got
I mean, listen. You see, look at baseball stadiums. Aaron Judge would have 3 homers anywhere else in his whole career, but he plays in that short porch and right, baby. He gets to get 60 a year.
Like what? I couldn't believe what I saw there. I couldn't believe that.
You know, ridiculous.
Like, dude, the refs. Can we just talk about it for a second? How bad the refs were in this game?
We can, but really quick to top that point off. Like, I believe in freedom of speech, right, Jack? But there are certain times where I look at like headlines and I'm like, you could have just shut the fuck up with this one. Like, we could have held that one because like we know what the American public's gonna do and like just how dumb people are. That was one that I wouldn't even be pissed had they not told me that. If we just assumed the refs missed the call after we saw that or whatever. For Mike Pereira, it is like, yeah, there's just keep that one to yourself, Mikey. You think maybe you're giving us good things here? This is bad. That made it worse.
Yeah, maybe just don't. Maybe just don't say anything.
Shut the fuck up sometimes. That's it. That's all I'm saying.
But man, like I know we're talking a little bit more like overview stuff, but in the last few episodes we have talked about how we did want to talk more about the game, and we did want to actually have conversations about what took place on Sunday. There was the we talked about the short throw to Rome where there wasn't the defensive pass interference. I don't know how it's not pass interference. Like it makes me think that there are biases when it comes to refereeing because of I think of like the way that they handle running quarterbacks, especially like a guy like Justin Fields, how many calls that he didn't get for late hits or roughing the passer because he's a running quarterback. Is there bias against a receiver throwing to another receiver? Because I just don't know how that isn't.
Yeah,
I genuinely don't know how that isn't defensive pass interference.
Yeah,
the guy pushed him out of the way.
He very clearly impeded his ability to get to the ball, and his head was not turned. But to your point, I think the logic would check out. I think referees feel like it's tough with a running quarterback because they think, or they're assuming he's going to try to fight for the extra yardage. So you're giving the defensive player the benefit of the doubt that he's not trying to make, it's not unnecessary roughness because he thinks he has to take this guy down. I don't agree with it. I think that's what happens, though. I think in that same mold, they're assuming because this is a non-quarterback throwing the ball, that ball wasn't accurate anyway. It was a play that you let the guys fight for it, and whatever happens, happens. So in that same light, I think you are correct. There is a bias there. But Jack, the refs were bad. And listen, I'm not blaming this game on the refs. This was an Eberflus special.
Absolutely not.
But not only were the refs bad against the Bears, they missed some shit for the Vikings. That out of bounds, the fact that they called like a hold when afterwards, I forgot who it was, Hardy on the Bears. I mean, this dude's like 5 yards out of bounds and just fucking clobbers him. And I was like, oh shit, that's a late hit right there. They don't call it at all. They're like, they mingle for like 3 minutes too. And I'm like, oh, they're discussing tossing this guy out of the ball game. They get out of that thing and they're like, holding. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I didn't see the hold, but I'll take it. Listen, Jack, the point that I want to stand is the NFL does have to do something about the refs because it's not just this game. It's not just the Bears. It's not just the Vikings. They have been really bad. I don't know if I've ever seen, none of it happened this game, I don't think, but just across the league, so many missed face masks right in front of referees. It's bad. I don't like, I think part of me feels like that the NFL has put an emphasis on shit that really doesn't fucking matter or happen all that often. Thinking of like horse collar, thinking of illegal shifts. Yeah, but I was thinking more of like the hip drop tackle.
That hasn't even been called. I feel like I haven't
because it's impossible to call in real time. That's one that you have to wait till afterwards and find the player afterwards and maybe try to get it out of the game. But it's impossible to take out of the game, with the refs being at the helm there. But I think they're looking for this other weird stuff that the NFL wants there to be emphasis on, and they're missing some of the most obvious shit in the world on a weekly basis. Something has to happen because Goodell is getting in like Adam Silver territory where it's like, what do you provide to this product? Because it's getting worse.
That NBA thing, man. I wish we were still the Corked Up Podcast because I'd love to talk about how bad it is right now, how bad that product is.
And Nas is on board. We're in another group chat where it's basically all basketball. I obviously don't have so much input, but those dudes are basketball heads. I'm talking NBA, League Pass, watch all the games, listen to the podcast. They're where we were 4 years ago, baby. It took them a little bit, but they're here.
Frank, real quick before we discuss our last topic of the podcast, because again, I do want to talk about the Bears. You know, has this been a wasted year for Caleb Williams? And that's sort of where we'll end the first episode for the House of Halas podcast. Real quick, I just saw a tweet. It is from the 33rd team, which I don't know if you saw. They are going to be playing a very big role in hiring the Jets GM and head coach, which, I mean, listen, I know the Bears hire Ernie Accorso and Bill Polian, but at least this isn't that, I guess. We're not hiring social media people to find us a head coach and GM, but they posted odds for the next Bears head coach, and I thought this was interesting.
Yeah, I did. I saw that.
I'm going to run through them real quick. We don't have to touch on every single one, but I'm just kind of shocked a little bit about who's at the top, who's at the bottom. So the favorite right now, according to the 33rd team, again, this is on their Twitter. You can go find it. It's about 4 hours ago, it says. The number one, the highest favored coach to be the head coach of the Bears next year, offensive coordinator Joe Brady for the Buffalo Bills at plus 325 over Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson at plus 400.
Yep.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. I think what they're playing into is the history of this franchise not wanting to pay big money. Joe Brady is going to command the same contract in the same ballpark of a contract that Ben Johnson is. Someone's going to blank check Ben Johnson. If those numbers come out, he may have the largest contract just behind whatever Bill Belichick was making, because I think he had an insane contract. So that would check out. I'm only here to say this about the topic, Jack. If the Bears hire Joe Brady, I will commit suicide live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Frank Mags.
Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. Well, I'm going to give you some other names. Thomas Brown is third at plus 600.
We're just chugging through it, yeah?
Moving right past that. Aaron
Frank's
Glenn,
body's just hanging, and you're just negative 700.
Because I got some other names for you here.
Okay.
Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator of the Lions, is fourth at plus 700. And right next to him is Liam Cohen, the OC of the Bucs, who we weren't exactly thrilled about them potentially hiring in the offseason. Who knows how that would be playing out right now. Kellen Moore. And then at plus 950, Mike Vrabel, all the way down there with the likes of Josh McCown, who I'm pretty sure, hold the fuck on. They have on their graphic Josh McGowan.
Yeah, I saw that.
Hilarious to me because that's how stupid Chicago people used to say his fucking name.
I know.
Josh McGowan.
I did not know until I was looking at the graphic, Jack, that Vrabel was doing anything with the Cleveland Browns. He is a personal consultant.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I just thought he was
Petzing, who I'm assuming is the OC for the Cardinals. That does nothing for me. And then Brian Flores at plus 1600, which I know I think Nas would be a little bit disappointed in, right? He was on the Flores train a little bit.
I'm not opposed to the Flores train. I think he does deserve a second chance. I think he will have learned from what happened with the Tua Tagovailoa situation, but his odds are going to be that low with everyone because he still has an active lawsuit against the NFL. I don't know how exactly that's going to look to the owner that does hire him, unless he can convince him to drop them or something, but I think he deserves it. I'm not saying he does not deserve it. I think he's been doing a phenomenal job with Minnesota. I think he's a brilliant defensive mind. I think he has the potential to be a very good leader of men. This is a 32 owner club, very exclusive club that talks, is all I'm saying. I think that's reflective in that number. And
that's just not, anybody with that sort of background pending is not going to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears with the McCaskies running this team the way they are. It's just not. Yeah,
probably not. But I mean, numbers and odds aside, the only people I'm interested on that list are Ben Johnson, Thomas Brown, Mike Vrabel, and Brian Flores. I don't want Any of those other dudes.
Interesting list, and obviously it's it's a good amount of clickbait there,
Yeah.
But, engagement farming, whatever. But if those odds are accurate, I just find it interesting that Joe Brady is the number one over Ben Johnson, because I just feel like Joe Brady hasn't been talked about at all, just in terms of any head coaching opportunity. It's mostly been Ben Johnson, Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel are kind of like the big three right now that are standing out. So we'll see how it goes, but I think that's a good segue. Honestly, we're talking about the future here. Let's talk about this rookie season for Caleb Williams. We talked about it at the top. We've talked about it since the beginning of this podcast. We've talked about it since they got the number one pick a couple of years ago. From the Panthers, that this could be potentially an option for them. Frank, do you feel like this has been a wasted season for Caleb Williams? Have the Bears actively just wasted one of the very precious years on a rookie contract for Caleb Williams?
This is going to sound like a Matt Eberflus coward answer, but I promise it'll make sense at the end. I'm not going to ramble. I'm going to get right to the point. The answer is yes and no. The reason why it's a yes is because any quarterback at the helm, this roster should be a playoff roster. Both sides of the ball, there are not very many holes. Offensive line, pending, obviously. But regardless, this should be a team contending for playoff contention. We shouldn't already be looking at next year's draft status. This is a coaching thing. So in that aspect, you have wasted a precious year on a quarterback's rookie record who was going to get the largest contract in Bears history after 3 or 4 years. Let's just call it what it is. The guy is going to get fucking paid. Whatever quarterback's getting paid, then he's getting the Jordan Love contract, but we'll have earned it. But the reason why it's a no as well is because I do not think the year has been wasted in terms of his development. Would it have been if Waldron was here for all 17? You could probably make the case for it. But the one thing that I remain consistent on, I know that there are some guys that need to sit for a year, for a couple of games. We saw it with Anthony Richardson. We saw it with Bryce Young. We saw it for 17 years with Jordan Love. Some guys just need to sit, and that's okay. Caleb wasn't one of them. What he needed were these live rounds. He needed live action to see it, to feel it, to get adapted to the game. He was already advanced to a point where sitting and learning would have done him literally nothing. He would have been a kid who was supposed to be in the highest of private schools, being in a public school in CPS, and he would have been bored. That's what would have happened. He was too advanced for that. So to me, live rounds is what mattered this year. Now we're combining it with competent play calling and actually him getting, affirmation that he can succeed in this league. So to that standpoint, no. But again, with a better coach, this is. Look at what Harbaugh is doing with less talent. The quarterback is probably a little bit better, a little more established, if you will. But the rest of that roster, I don't think checks out to what the Bears have. And if he's here, we may have only lost one game thus far. That's how good talent-wise this roster is, in my opinion. So a little bit of a convoluted answer, but I'm trying to distinguish between the two. How do you feel about the whole thing?
Yeah, I don't think there's not any argument that it's been wasted at all. Obviously, I would have loved to have everything. Look, I would have loved to have been wrong about Matt Eberflus and right, I guess, at the time about Shane Waldron and that, how excited we were that he was going to be the offensive coordinator. Like you said, we didn't know how he talked to the media. We didn't know how he talked to his locker room. We only saw, snippets afterwards about what it could potentially look like. And unfortunately, those things were a lot more than just red flags. They were big, giant red banners that are hung in the UC rafters. We unfortunately were right about Matt Eberflus, and they have to, restart the cycle. What I will say, though, is any doubts that you had about Caleb Williams being able to adapt it's out the window.
Oh, yeah.
This dude has had an offensive coordinator, a new offensive coordinator for 2 weeks, and he's played infinitely better. This dude, the way he carries himself, the way he handles himself, the way he plays, I have zero pause that he is going to be able to adapt to whatever offensive system is implemented, regardless of who is the head coach hired as, if they are the play caller or if they are defensive head coach that hires another offensive play caller. Maybe they keep Thomas Brown around. I have zero concerns because this dude is he's a football player. He knows how to play the position. He is a special talent that I think will be completely fine. the stark contrast, I think, between Matt Eberflus and the way that he just stands up there after losses, and it's just the same thing over and over and over. We got to get better. We got to do this. You know, we got to adjust. I got to watch the film, versus how Caleb talks. And we talked about it last week. The detail he gives, the lightness that he brings to it, where, you know, it was kind of funny. It's such a small thing, but he like got caught up when talking about you know, his initial statement, and he like kind of like did something that I feel like a lot of people do, where they're just like, you know, and then you reset and what you're saying. It's very human, and I feel like Caleb Williams is that. He's a very, I think, a very likable personality, honestly. It kind of reminded me of the days of like Robot Mitch, where he would give those answers while wearing like the fucking Christmas sweater with the lights, and he was just very, I have to thank my teammates. They did a good job. I have to play better. Like, it just, he's very personable. And he's someone I feel like you just have to feel ultra confidence in being able to build around this guy.
Yeah.
Obviously, we expected playoffs. So I guess if you're looking at it from that perspective, yeah, it's a wasted season. They should be in the playoffs with better, competent coaching, like you were saying, if they had hired Jim Harbaugh. But ultimately, they didn't. We are where we're at. And even with all that being said, I don't think this is a wasted season. It's only going to get better from here. It's only going to get it's trending upwards.
Totally agree. I mean, listen, Jack, Caleb is, I felt like it was going to come out much better than that. We have brighter days ahead, because we don't need, again, like, if Kyle Shanahan gets fired and we hire him the next day, that's great. I mean, that's like, you know, potential multiple Super
As a
Bowls.
49ers fan, as a lifelong 49ers fan, it's time to get rid of Kyle Shanahan. You
I
can't
agree.
win with Brandon Allen. Come on.
Yeah, ridiculous.
What are we doing?
But to your point, not only the adaptability, just all we need is competency. We don't need a guy that like makes everyone better. And like, I mean, you know, the debate that some people have about the Niners or Brock Purdy specifically, is he really a good quarterback, or is it Kyle Shanahan's play calling and play design? We don't need that. We just, that's what Thomas Brown is already competent. Again, he has the chance to like be better than that. But even if he just to stay where what he's done the last couple of weeks, that's what's needed here. We don't need an absolute offensive guru, although Ben Johnson, please come. But you get what I'm saying? Like that would only be like icing on the cake. We're seeing this guy just with competence around him succeed. That's it. That's all we need, and this kid is going to fucking shine. And this team will shine. And the offense will shine. And I'll shine his nuts.
Yeah. Shine his nuts, and he'll come more than one way, if you catch 100%. My drift. Listen, here's the thing. People talking about Ben Johnson, you know, oh, he's going to have his pick of the litter. He's, you know, he can pick whatever situation he wants to go in. I think the exact same thing is true for the Bears, because of the quarterback situation. You look around the league about teams that you and I think, Nas thinks, that will most likely have an opening at the quarterback or at the head coaching position. You look about some of those teams where you know what the quarterback situation is. To me, this is Justin Herbert from this year with Jim Harbaugh. Like I'm of course I'm going to go coach the best quarterback available. That's Caleb Williams this offseason. Coaches are going to want to come here regardless of the situation at the top of the house, whether Ryan Poles is here or not, whether, you know, things that are said about the organization, the way that the Bears do things. That Caleb Williams is going to transcend a lot of that and make guys want to come here.
Jackie, okay, let's end it with this, because I agree with you. I was going over some, you know, the odds of the coaches to be fired and just assuming they would all be. Number 4 on Sports Grid's list is the Cincinnati Bengals. If you're Ben Johnson, same offer, 5 years, $80 million, whatever it's going to be, to coach the Bengals and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, or the Bears.
I mean,
that's tough. That would be, I think, and the reason why I brought them up is because I think that is the only team that you could probably make the case for of what you just said. But I don't know if Cincy's going to fire Zach Taylor. They like to hang on to coaches for far, far too long. We saw that for years.
Marvin Lewis made the playoffs, but never won anything. For what was it, like
15 years.
14 years, 15
years. It was
years,
ridiculous. Yeah.
Like that.
But yeah, I would hope that this is what I want Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles. They've got to let their nuts hang in this next coaching hire. This can't be, we're looking for the guy. You need to court us too. We have Caleb fucking Williams, Rome Odunze. Yep. We're a charter franchise. You should want to be. That's not to try to don't do it to cheapskate people. Don't don't try to knock a few million off the contract because of all that. But like, just fucking stop being nice. Stop being the good guys. Your guy. Yeah. How about you fly out George to you on your dime, bitch? Ben, you fly us out. No, maybe not that, but you get what I'm saying. I'm getting a little carried away, Jackie.
No, it's, I listen, as long as the Bears stay within the realm of hiring within football and not going like, what was it, the Browns that hired like a baseball guy, and that's clearly just, that obviously didn't work. Like, let's just stick to what works, hire the best guys, and if I see that we have once again hired a 100-year-old man who's been in football forever, like a Bill Polian, like an Ernie Accord, like if that happens again, and I'm hoping if Ryan Poles is retained, which again, you and I think at this point feel like is likely to happen. I still question his decision making because of the offensive coordinator stuff. Like, yeah,
it's up in the air still, and marrying himself this year so strongly to Matt Eberflus heading into the year.
That's the one thing that like I can't get away from.
He's gonna have to earn it with the next hire. But Jack, listen, the one thing that will supersede all of that, I may be out on the franchise in general if they have to hire another guy. That's what Kevin Warren's here for. He's the head of football operations. If you still feel the need to hire outside help, we're cooked. There's no, they can't do that again.
Yeah. It's, I still think that Caleb Williams will supersede a lot of this stuff, and will be the most attractive option, unless obviously the Bengals opening does pop up.
Even I still then, they're kind of cheap too.
I was going to say that there is a realistic chance that they would not pay the highest, they wouldn't want to make Ben Johnson the highest paid coach, but also from a player perspective, call me crazy. If you're starting something, Joey B has had his injuries. I know he's a little bit really older these days. I'm trying to sell the fucking thing. All right.
Okay. My bad.
He's on a rookie contract. All right. We just wasted. Oh, no, we didn't waste. Sorry. No, we didn't waste.
Look at you. Look at you. Fucking telling on yourself.
Oh, man. I learned from the best.
Yeah.
Get us out of here, Jackie. We have a good process here at the House of Halas Podcast. I can't listen to that motherfucker. I thought Matt Nagy was the worst thing I'd ever have to hear with the word salad. Well, I called a run play, but we just gotta get we gotta get good. We gotta get better.
Yeah. Well, then we gotta find the why. Too. I didn't come here to run the die. I didn't come here to run the die and key formations.
We gotta find the why. We gotta start asking ourselves the why, and we gotta go out there. We gotta hire a private investigator to find out why.
And I came here to run 5 curl routes, 3 straight plays in a row.
Listen,
I didn't come here to run the I formation, buddy.
Didn't like seeing that. That was 5 curl routes. But dude, just I know he's hard to listen to, but I beg you, as a House of Halas listeners, just listen to one of those press conferences, because he has the weirdest cadence on words. Everything ends with just, we have the best process here. Like a process. We fought hard. I like the guys. They had good fight left in them. I like how they fight. It's fucking weird, man.
I have accredited myself long ago. I'm a super hater. When I hate something, I hate something. And I love that you've picked up the little things that you hate about Matt, because that's how I am with a lot of things.
Am I crazy? You hear it, right?
Oh, no, 100%. 100. But it's just one of those things. We're wired a little different. It doesn't hit me like it hits you, but I will have something like that with someone. So I identify. I know exactly what you're talking about. Just that one, it's not one little thing. It's a big thing. And now all the little things are just as big as the big thing. You know what I mean?
I start to nitpick.
Yeah.
Listen, I still can't believe, I'm going to end it here. This is going to be the end of the House of Halas podcast, the first episode right here. How the fuck did he interview and go, here's my acronyms. It's the hits principle.
Yeah.
And he gets the T. And he says, the ball. and the Chicago Bears are like, yep, this is our guy. This is our fucking guy.
I picture George in the presentation room. Like, this is what happened. When he said the ball, George looked to his right and there was a ball. And he's like, yeah, we have a ball.
Yeah,
that's right. This one's signed by Walter.
I've been thinking all morning about what that T stands for. I couldn't think of it. I can't believe it's not turnovers. How do we live in a world that is not?
Turnovers or tenacity is all we needed.
It's the ball is T, and he got hired. I mean, listen, if the point was the tank, you know,
the T could have been for tank. Come on, Jack.
He says the ball. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's what we got to title this episode.
What if he didn't even bring that up, and the first time they all heard it, the hiring group heard it, was at the opening press conference?
And they just look at each other and
they're like, holy shit, we fucked up.
Fuck. Shit. They're going to be mad about this one.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, that's good stuff. This has been the House of Halas Podcast, episode 1. Thank you so much for listening, for liking, subscribing, all of the people who have migrated over since the Corked Up podcast days, since the Bear With Us podcast days. We genuinely appreciate the support that we've gotten. Have a happy Thanksgiving, Frank. We got a game coming up in a couple fucking days here that we're going to be talking about. Bears, Lions. Let's hope it's, I think it'll be competitive. I know the Bears are like 10-point dogs, but
I don't know.
I don't know. Come on. Trust your quarterback here.
I do, but that run defense against that
David Montgomery might be out. He might be out.
Jameer Gibbs going to run for about 250.
Enough. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Jack. That's Frank. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everybody. We genuinely appreciate. Please, feel free to comment on your on what you think the T should have been in the hits principle, because I'd love to hear it. There, anything is better than the ball, but apparently not. Frankie, have a happy Thanksgiving, man.
You too. I'll think about my slaughtered ancestors. Later, Jackie. Later, everybody.